Here's part 2 of my top 30 favorite reviewers of all time. And coming in at number 20 is Team Yume, basically consisting of Faries, Adriano aka Madhog the Master Bordoni, and Shannon aka Miss Esme Kasane. Now alone, these guys are pretty awesome. With Faries, he has a very down-to-earth approach into reviewing anime or making his top favorite anime moments of all time. With Adriano or Madhog, he has a more irreverent approach and quite the snarky tone at that in how he looks at certain animated installments. And with Shannon, she's slightly more mischievous and a lot more bubbly of the three. But when put together, these guys have excellent chemistry. They just bounce off of each other so flawlessly that it is just, simply put, quite riveting to watch. And you can definitely tell that they have a lot of fun doing their said reviews together. And there is just a lot of really great vibes to really bounce off of each other in such a wonderful way. And when you combine the down-to-earth personality of Ross to the more sarcastic tone of Madhog to the more mischievous tone of Miss Esme, then you definitely have a combination that is so awesome to watch from beginning to end. My biggest highlights from these three have to be their reviews of Another and, of course, Baka and Test Summon the Beasts. With Another, I'm not gonna spoil the ending, but it almost comes out of nowhere, but is really, really hilarious. But with Baka and Test Summon the Beasts, the ending is actually quite touching, which is something that is almost surprising for me, but nonetheless actually worked. And overall, one can tell that Ross, Adriano, and Shannon have a lot of fun doing their said reviews together when it comes to their collabs. And even their individual work is really, really cool to watch. Whether it be Ross's Anime Gems, or Madhog's Look Back into Tom and Jerry, or even Shannon's various anime reviews, one can tell that alone these guys are awesome, but together they are just even more awesome when they play off of each other in a manner that is just so hilarious to watch. And there are times that I almost wanted to really be part of their Team Yume group and pretty much participate in a crossover. And who knows, maybe that time will come because these guys have really wonderful chemistry. And I always think to myself that maybe there will come a time where we could collaborate with each other. And there are times I used to think that with collaborating with these two, I might be sort of like the Fanfic Critic to their Susans, which would be really fun as an idea. And speaking of Fanfic Critic, she's basically on my number 19 spot. Yes, this goes to her as she's the Fanfic Critic, she reads it, you listen. And even though Megan retired from her Fanfic Critic stint about a year ago, the legacy of her as a reviewer will forever live on. I was introduced to her by chance when I was about 19 or 20 years old, and I saw her epic takedown of Sonichu, in which she called out the overly amateurish drawings and of course the stupid story, and the fact that Sonichu is essentially a merge between Sonic the Hedgehog and Pikachu the Pokemon. Nothing more. And I definitely enjoy her style of reviewing when she takes a look at a lot of these horribly written fanfics, as she manages to have a very fun, sarcastic, but at the same time really insane tone that she manages to add with these reviews. And complementing the Fanfic Critic's insanity is Susan's straight woman's snarky nature, and of course the one and only lesbian Jesus, all played wonderfully by the one and only Megan Wessels. And one has to really give it to Megan for being quite savvy on how she also deals with trolls. She really has this type of self-confidence that I wish that I have. She's just awesome all throughout, not only as the Fanfic Critic and Susan or Lesbian Jesus, but also as a person overall. And I especially love her Fanfic Critic Freakouts list. And the second one really takes the cake because it's a combination of hilarious, but when you reach the ending, it's really, really touching. I dare not spoil it for you, but for those of you who've watched it, know what I mean. And it's nonetheless a really fun and really touching watch from beginning to end. So overall, there are a lot of really awesome things I can go on and on and on when it comes to the Fanfic Critic and how much she's played a major part in my life as a reviewer. But it's safe to say that the Fanfic Critic's legacy will forever live on, and her reviews have played a major part in my life of how I take a look at certain installments. She was and will always be probably one of the most wonderful critics I have ever witnessed, not only on YouTube, but the internet in general. Coming in at number 18, we have Phelous, Bobsheaux, Isaac the Media Hunter, and LewToons. When it comes to the field of animation, these guys not only look at some of the best pieces of animation, but also call out some of the worst pieces of animation, yet also have their own set of cult classics when it comes to animation in general. With Phelous, he mostly specializes in looking at a lot of the bad pieces of animation, whether it be ripoffs or just really obscure titles from a lot of these obscure animation companies. He does so in a very snarky, yet quite upbeat tone, but nonetheless has a very critical eye, which is something I really respect from someone like Phelous. And I really love his cameo in Kyle Colgren's aka Owen Citizens from Browse Held High review of the pig fucking movie known in its original French as Vas de Noces, in which he made a cameo along with Brad Jones as the cinema snob, and they basically call out poor old Owen Citizen in terms of just really having first reviewer dibs of this film and the other two just didn't have. And it's basically a reviewer-based economy, which I found really hilarious. And seeing their personalities bounce off of each other was just wonderful. It's safe to say that Phelous is really enjoyable as a reviewer in his own special way. Bobsheaux is a lot more deadpan in his approach, but is nonetheless quite passionate about the field of animation and also family entertainment in general. He not only scours out some obscure titles and also ventures out into musical reviews like his review of The Phantom of the Opera starring Sierra Boggess, but also some really obscure titles and even some of the worst pieces of animation and even some infamous pieces of animation or family entertainment. Cool Cat Saves the Kids, I'm looking at you. And he does so in a way that is snarky, intellectual, yet all the more fun to watch. And he's just enjoyable from beginning to end. With Isaac the Media Hunter, he's really enjoyable and quite unique in his own special way because he basically voices a World of Warcraft character, as he not only takes a look at animated films, but also live action films that feature an animal in the title, which is really awesome. And he manages to execute these reviews with his upbeat tone and quite snarky personality, but is nonetheless really upbeat and quite a joy to listen to and quite a joy to watch on screen. And his constant collabs with a lot of his other fellow reviewers is just a lot of fun to watch and a lot of fun to witness as well. With LewToons, he's quite enjoyable as a reviewer, as he not only takes a good look at some really great pieces of animation that have also gained quite a great amount of fame, but also some really obscure titles and even the ripoffs. And he manages to execute all of his reviews with not only a good humored personality, but also backs them up with being informative, and he just has a very fine critical eye all throughout. So what more can you say about these guys who specialize in not only some of the best pieces of animation, but also some of the more obscure titles when it comes to the world of animation? They just do their jobs really wonderfully, and they're just really great all throughout. At number 17, we have Joey Tedesco from the Cartoon Palooza, AniMat, and Whyboy from Cartoon Corner. Joey Tedesco is quite snarky in his reviews thanks to his Brooklyn accent, but he does so in a way that I managed to have a lot of fun with. Whether he reviews cult classics or takes a good look at some of the nostalgic cartoon shows or even some guilty pleasures like Space Jam, one can definitely tell that Joey has a ball in taking a good look at those said installments. and he's just a really fine watch all throughout. His snarky personality brings a huge smile to my face every time I watch our dear friend Joey Tedesco on the screen. AniMat is a lot more informative in terms of his approach as a critic. Whether he takes a good look at some of the recent films or some of the classic films, or even his segments on animation look back or even AniMat watches, one can definitely tell that this is an animation connoisseur. For someone who's also my age, yet also 6 months younger, he manages to really know the ins and outs of the animation world and does so in a way that is very articulate, and you could definitely tell that this gentleman has a pure passion for animation, whether it be from the golden age or even from the recent age or even from the dark ages of animation. One can definitely tell that he backs everything up with facts and figures, but also keeps his sense of passion intact whatever he reviews. Whyboy is also quite charismatic as an animation reviewer, as he not only has one personality to play like Whyboy, but also the various characters that he portrays, like Nero and a lot of the other colorful characters. He's also quite analytical as a reviewer, but more than anything, his personality, whether it be bouncy and snarky, just shines all throughout his reviews. So what more can you say about these three awesome young men when it comes to the animation world? They manage to really know their stuff, and they know how to do their homework to the best of their abilities, thus making their reviews shine out wonderfully in their own special ways. From Joey Tedesco's snarky personality, to AniMat's encyclopedic knowledge of the world of animation, to Whyboy's perky and really fun personality, these guys are a definite must-watch. At number 16, we have Patricia Miranda from Old School Lane. Yes, Kevin is also the co-founder of Old School Lane, but I decided to go with Patricia because I really love her articulate style of how she managed to express herself, whether it be the written language or the spoken language. She manages to do everything in such a way that is so awesome, and I definitely look up to her so much. Whether she writes articles from her Old School Lane blog or makes video blogs on those said installments, she is just simply put a very awesome person to witness, and she's also really down to earth. She is quite passionate when it comes to the world of entertainment, and she is also someone who's quite knowledgeable, and she also does her fair amount of research before posting anything, which is something I admire so much in Patricia. She's really awesome as not only a blogger, but also a video blogger or a reviewer and what have you. She's just awesome all throughout, and her interviews with the likes of Mark Summers, Andy McAfee, Justin Schenkero are also absolute must-reads. So I'm not going to mince words about Patricia from Old School Lane. She is a very awesome and down-to-earth blogger, video blogger, and reviewer, and she even manages to find certain elements that may have held up well and probably might not have held up well to this very day. Like her opinions on As Told by Ginger have held up wonderfully, and her opinions of the likes of Cat Dog or the Wild Thornberries haven't really held up, mostly because the flaws found in Cat Dog, as she stated, mainly have to be the mean-spiritedness of the show, and in terms of the Wild Thornberries, it tended to be quite underwhelming. But you really have to give it to Patricia to really call out on those facets, and she does so in a way that's very articulate, yet makes her all the more awesome to watch from beginning to end. At number 15, we have all of the fine ladies and gentlemen of Them Anime Reviews, the NIhon Review, and Anime America. When it comes to anime, I certainly love it so much. And there are times I'd love to hear what people can recommend and what people won't recommend. And you really have to leave it up to these guys to really state their opinions of what they can recommend and what they won't recommend. In terms of the written blogs found in Them Anime Reviews and the NIhon Reviewer, I pretty much read their blogs religiously, whether it be reviewing some of the best titles like Cowboy Bebop, or even the likes of Now and Then Here and There, to reviewing pretty obscure titles like Shuten Doji. These guys pretty much have me covered, as they are really awesome all throughout. And whether I agree with their opinions or not, it's always really cool and interesting to see people chime in to see what they really think, whether they not like this certain installment or really love it. They really know how to be articulate with their thoughts, and when it comes to Anime America, these guys, whether it be Robin, Anna, and all the other fine ladies and gentlemen of Anime America, these guys know how to have a lot of fun with the installments they take a good look at, or whether they make their top lists of whatever anime themes they have. These guys are definitely awesome, and even though I may not always agree with their opinions, there's no doubt that I enjoy watching their reviews and top 10 lists or top whatever lists, no matter what the occasion. So I'm not going to mince words here. All the fine ladies and gentlemen of them anime reviews, the NIhon review, and of course Anime America definitely are awesome when it comes to really chiming in terms of saying their pieces of what they think of certain anime series. At number 14, we have the Animated Heroine and Books vs. Movies reviews with Matt. Now, going to these two reviewers, they basically compare and contrast different installments. With the Animated Heroine, it's two different animated films, and with Books vs. Movies, the movie and the book adaptation are basically subjects of comparison done by one reviewer who plays two different characters. Now, going into the Animated Heroine, I was introduced to her by complete chance, as my first real versus real review was that of Ants versus A Bug's Life, and I continue to watch her real versus real segments, and I found a lot of very interesting facets of what she had to compare them to, making all of those reviews really awesome in their own right, given the fact that Danny is also an artist in real life and has also studied visual arts as a major. Thus, her experience really shines, and her passion for animation also does shine through these said installments. I especially love her other reviews, whether it be her reviews of cult classics like The Triplets of Belleville, or even Waking Life, or even her On the Rack segment, where she takes a look at films that she used to like from the past but have not held up in any shape or form, and give her reasons as to why those films fail in particular. I find Danny, aka the Animated Heroine, really awesome, mostly due to the fact that she has a lot of experience in terms of studying not only the visual arts, but also being an artist herself. Her passion really does shine through these said reviews, and it's really awesome. Now, when it comes to Matt from Books vs. Movie reviews, you really have to give Matt loads of credit for playing two characters. One who's regular Matt, and the other one who's Matt Hatter. Matt Hatter mostly specializing in movies, and regular Matt mostly specializing in books, and a lot of the other colorful characters which appear on screen. The way Matt is able to give both the movie and the book a fair share of what are their strengths and weaknesses is really admirable, because I myself am a huge literature fan, and I grew up with some of these books like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and even Alice in Wonderland, The Wizard of Oz, and a lot of the different fairy tales. And to see someone like Matt give a critical and analytical eye on not only the movie adaptation but also the book adaptation is not only admirable but really awesome all throughout. So when it comes to comparing and contrasting two different installments, one has to give Danny, aka the Animated Heroine, and Matt from Books vs. Movies, who plays Matt Hatter and regular Matt and all the other colorful characters on the show, loads of credit in terms of how they managed to use their critical and analytical eye, and also their experiences as artists, into really seeing what holds up and what doesn't hold up. They are truly masters of their own craft, and they're just, simply put, awesome all throughout. I know I spam that word a lot, but those are definitely my feelings when it comes to those really wonderful reviewers. They are awesome at their craft, and they really know how to give a critical and analytical eye to the installments they take a good look at. At number 13, we have Lava Buster, Hardy from the Hard Mode, and JesuOtaku. Sure, they may have retired from doing video reviews, but they managed to leave such a huge mark on me as a reviewer that there is just no denying that they were absolutely great in their own special way. I was also introduced to this reviewer by chance, as my first review from this particular gentleman was his review of Gravitation and how he felt like that anime was a so-so show. And from then on, I tuned into a lot of his reviews on a regular basis, whether it be his reviews of Street Fighter 2V, or even Black Lagoon, or even two of my most favorite anime films of all time, Tokyo Godfathers and Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. He is just really awesome all throughout. Sure, I may not always agree with his opinions, but that's part of the fun when you're on the internet. You could definitely see the brilliance, the charisma, and the absolute professionalism that Ray has when he embodies Lava Buster. His opinions may be harsh, but he's someone I constantly look up to so much because of just how purely direct he is, and just how he's able to find certain facets when it comes to writing and characterization, and really finds out what works in those elements and what doesn't. He is just great all throughout as a reviewer, and I will certainly miss him so much. When we go to Hardy from the Hard Mode, he's a lot more lax in his approach, but he's nonetheless someone who gives a very critical eye to those said installments, mostly when it comes to anime. He is very down to earth in his approach to animated installments, and he's just quite the pleasure to watch from beginning to end, and he's quite fun. He is really down to earth, yet nonetheless maintains a critical eye in terms of the installment he takes a good look at. JesuOtaku, my word, was he really awesome. And before he was known as Jacob Hope Chapman, he was basically known as Hope Chapman, aka JesuOtaku. My first introduction to the world of JesuOtaku was his review of Ikitosen and how he bashed that thing so much, mostly due to poor writing and of course poor characterization. And from then on, I tuned into his show regularly. I mean, there is no doubt that this fine reviewer introduced me to really giving such a critical eye on certain installments, but at the same time, you could tell that there is a lot of charisma, brilliance, and just pure awesomeness pouring out of his every pore every time he looks at an anime installment, which is just great all throughout. I do apologize about the lighting change, but that's what happens in the winter months. So even if Lava Buster, Hardy, and JesuOtaku have retired from doing video reviews, the legacies that these awesome reviewers have will forever live on, not only in here, but also in here, as their overall professionalism and their overall sense of really finding out what makes certain installments work or not work at all is just really awesome. And just how intellectual these guys are is something to really aspire. Coming in at number 12 are the Black Critic Guy, Jambareeqi, and Eye of Soul. Now, these guys are just simply put awesome at everything that they do, mostly because they cover a huge range of topics, mostly specializing in animated movies, anime, live action movies, whatever they have to offer. They will definitely give their 2 cents on those installments. Let's start off with Tony Watley II, the Black Critic Guy. My word, does his enthusiasm and his passion really shine through those videos. And he is definitely someone I look up to so much, because every time I watch those videos, his passion, his enthusiasm, and his love for film and the love for that craft really shine. And that is something that I'm sure a lot of young people will definitely aspire every time they watch those said videos. And it's just not anime that he reviews, because back then he was also known as the Black Anime Guy, but he also reviews live action movies, animated movies, cartoons, You name it, he's got you covered. And that's what really makes Tony Whatley II, aka the Black Critic guy, really awesome as a reviewer. And I just wish that I have his enthusiasm and his overall audience engagement, which really makes him stand out as a very great reviewer in my eyes. Jambareeqi is really such a great source of inspiration for me because James has also helped me to become a better YouTuber, mostly because James really does know the ins and outs of what it really takes to be a really good YouTuber. And I've watched some of his videos, and let me just tell you that his charm and that occasional deadpan tone really make him shine as an awesome reviewer all throughout. Whether he reviews animated films, live action films, or even installments that are mostly well known from his Merry Old England, Jambareeqi is definitely my biggest source of inspiration, and Eye of Soul is also yet another reviewer that I caught completely by chance and surprisingly from this year. I've watched a couple of her reviews, most notably her reviews of The Bobsheaux and Ben 10, and what we have here is someone who's really direct, quite meticulous, but at the same time, someone who's also quite passionate. She's really meticulous in her work as a critic, mostly because she does try to find certain things, certain details that may not hold up as much as the others will, but nonetheless has also find certain moments of brilliance in every installment she reviews, which I find really awesome. And I just wish that I have her directness. I just wish that I have her no-nonsense approach to approaching all of these installments. I just wish that I have all of those things that really define Eye of Soul. And that is what really makes Eye of Soul awesome. Whether she reviews something really well known and finds out what makes it work and what doesn't work, or whether she reviews something that is quite terrible and finds out what makes this installment fail in her eyes, or what makes certain installments that seem to have a high amount of praise really good in her eyes, then there's no doubt that Eye of Soul is definitely someone to look out for every single time. With that said, when you combine the really enthusiastic nature of Tony Whatley II, aka the Black Critic guy, helped with a great amount of passion, and combine that with Jambareeqi's more snarky tone, and combine that with Jambareeqi's deadpan snarker tone, which nonetheless has loads of charm, and even combine that to the more deadpan nature of Eye of Soul, whose directness and overall sense of really trying to see what works and what doesn't work just really makes her stand out. These guys are just, simply put, awesome in their own special ways, which is really such a blessing when I am really touched by their work, and I just hope the best for these wonderful reviewers. Coming in at number 11 is Diva from Musical Hell. I also caught this particular reviewer some time ago, back in 2016, where I caught her review show by complete chance. And she basically helped my interest in musical theater ignite once again, because I was mostly more interested in opera and ballet more so than musical theater. With her installments of taking a good look at some of the worst or even below mediocre or even mediocre movie musicals or even movie adaptations of musicals, she certainly knows what she's talking about, and of course, her segment, Know the Score, pays tribute to some of the greatest composers and even some of the greatest musical scores, which I find really enlightening through someone like Diva, who's also known in real life as Christy. She is just great at her craft, as she really knows what she's talking about, and she's someone who knows the ins and outs of what it takes to make a really great movie musical. And like I stated before, Diva, aka Christy, basically helped my interest in musical theater be reignited, and what more can I say about her? She is grand as a critic of movie musicals and musical theater overall. Well, that's it for part 2 of this list. Tune in later for the final 10. So stay tuned, everybody.